Hello everyone. This video will demonstrate implementation of graphical user interface in Python. So we're going to discuss about graphical user interface. Now in short, it is also called as GUI, G-U-I, or we call it as GUI. Now what is a graphical user interface? Graphical user interface is a way to interact with the program graphically. So you can interact with the program graphically. Let's understand it with an example. Okay, so let's say I want to design a program, a login program for asking the user to enter the username and password. And let's say if the username and password are valid or correct, then we'll say the login is successful. Otherwise, we say the login is unsuccessful. So in that case, if we have to design a console-based program, which we have seen till now, I would design it as like, I'll say username, I'll create a variable username. Okay, and yeah, so username equals to, and I'm gonna say input, enter the username, okay, and then maybe password equals to input, enter the password, okay. And let's say if maybe username equals any name, let's say John, right? And password equals to, let's say John. I'm gonna print login successful, right? Else print login unsuccessful, right? Okay, and it is giving me an error here, invalid syntax. Okay, because I used a variable PW instead of password. Okay, and double equals to. Okay, so if username is this and password is equals to this, login successful, else login unsuccessful. Now let's run the program. And I'm gonna put the username as John. Okay, and the password is John, and it says login successful, right? So this is one way that we can interact with the program, but here in what we are doing is we are approaching a console-based interactive with, we are communicating with the program through a console-based application. Okay, this is a console-based. In graphical user interface, we interact with the program or with the computer graphically. Okay, and think of it like this. Okay, so let's say you have a login program. Does this looks good and more user-friendly, or this looks good and more user-friendly? Of course, the answer would be this, right? This is more user-friendly, more appealing, more, it looks good graphically, right? And it is more user-friendly. So creating such kind of application is what we call it as graphical user interface or GUI. So GUI is a way by which you interact with the program graphically, okay, through the use of these elements that you see here, okay. So there are certain elements that we make use of to interact with the program graphically, and those elements are buttons, canvas, check button, entry, frame, label, list box, menu button, message, radio button, scroll bar, text, top level, etc. Okay. Most of the time, you'll be making use of button, um, button, label, entry, list box, radio button, check button. Okay, so let's see how to create that. Okay, let's first understand what does it mean by label or what does it mean by button. Okay, so the one that you see here, okay, which is okay. Okay, so this one that you see here, okay, this is called as label. So whenever you want to provide any information, you make use of label. Okay, so this is called as label here. So we call this as label. Okay, just displaying a text. Okay, similarly, the one which you use to seek user input, we call it as entry. Okay, many people call it as text field, but we call it as entry here. Okay, so this one is entry. What you see here is entry. This one is entry field. Again, this one is entry 2. This one is entry 2. Okay, then you have check buttons. Okay, so what you see here, this one is a check button. Check button. Okay, this one, wherein you say remember. Okay, so this one that you see here, this one is check button. This one is check button. Okay, now this one that you see in the green, wherein we have written submit, wherein I've written submit, that is called as a button. Okay, so this one we call it as a button. This one is nothing but a button. Okay, the way it works is you click on this and something will happen. Either a new window will open or you'll get some instructions, something like that. Okay, so that's called as button. So we're going to see how to create these things. Okay, now these are called as widgets. We call it as widgets, and all these items are available in a library called as tkinter. Okay, now, one of the reasons that makes Python a very popular programming language is the extensive set of libraries available. Library is like a place wherein ready functions are written and you can call it in your program. You can directly use those functions in your program. For that, you have to use the import statements. Okay, so again, we are going to use a tkinter library, and the widgets, these items that I showed and over here, okay, these elements, they're called as widgets. Okay, so we are going to look at how to create label, how to create entry field, how to create buttons, check buttons or radio buttons, etc., and frames. Okay, so let's see. So as I said, in Python, the way we interact with all these items is we make use of a library. Okay, which library? We call it as tkinter. Okay, and we use a keyword import. Okay, we have seen this when we were discussing about random, how to create a random number. So import tkinter, right? You can do it like this, or you can say import tkinter as t. There are 2-3 ways you can import. Okay, so I'm gonna say import tkinter. Okay, now we have learned about objects and classes in the last week, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make use of a class. Okay, that makes my program more readable, more organized, and it will also give me all the advantages that are associated with object-oriented programming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class. Okay, and I'm going to name that class as GUI. You can name this class anything. Okay, now every time when we create a class, what do? We also create an initializer or a constructor that is responsible for creating an object, right? So I'm going to say def underscore underscore init underscore underscore. I'm going to say self. Okay, now every variable that you create inside the class, you precede it with a self keyword. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to first create a main window and I'm going to put everything inside that main window. Okay, for example, here and in this example, what you see in blue is my main window. Okay, and I have placed all the widgets inside that main window. So that is what we're going to follow here. Okay, so I'm gonna create a main window. I'm going to name it as a main window variable. Okay, and the way you create the main window is you create an object of this library. Okay, so tkinter dot tk. Okay, now here, and if you'll notice, the T is in uppercase, the K is in lowercase. Okay, if you'll just write it as TK, it was going to give you an error. So it's better that you write it. I mean, uh, be mindful when you write it. T is in uppercase, K is in lowercase. Okay, so tkinter dot TK. Some people also call it as Tinker, or some people call it as Kinter. I just call it as tkinter. Okay, so we have created a main window. Okay, now if you want to put something in this main window. Okay, so first we're going to see how to put a label inside a main window. So whenever you want to put something inside a window, you have to first create it. So I'm going to create a label, okay, by saying self dot, I'll just create a variable, let's say label 1 equals to, and I'm going to say tkinter dot label. Okay, it doesn't matter what you write on the left side, but it does matter what you write on the right side of equal. Okay, so if you'll see here in this label, which is a keyword, starts with a capital L. The spelling is not L-A-B-L-E, the spelling is L-A-B-E-L. Okay, so I created a label, then I followed it with an opening and closing parentheses. The first argument that goes inside the parentheses is where you want to keep the label. Okay, so I want to put the label inside the main window. So I'm going to say the first argument is always the argument wherein you want to put the label. So I'm going to say self dot main underscore window. Right. Now, what do you want to display on the label? That I would say text equals to, and let's just say hello. Hello, Tikinter. Okay. So I created a label and I put it inside a main window. Okay. And what I'm going to display, I'm displaying hello, Tikinter. Okay. Now, how do you display it on the screen? I created it, but how do you display it inside a screen? So I'll say self dot label one dot pack. Okay, label one dot pack. And why does give, okay, no error. Okay, self dot label one dot pack. And then at the end, it is always, you are always going to say tkinter dot main loop. Okay. So this stops the GUI screen on the display screen, okay? So whatever code you write, you always write all the code between def and this tkinter.main loop, okay? So this is always the last line in your code, and that makes your code more readable, okay? Basically, it is being used to stop the GUI on the screen, okay? So let's see, let's run this, okay? Will it run like this? No, it won't. Why? Because I wrote all the code inside a class, so I have to create an object of a class, right? So for that, I'm gonna create an object. Let's say my GUI is equals to GUI, okay? So I created an object of the class. What is it going to do? It will create an object of the class because of this constructor that I have defined. Okay. Constructor of initializers are the one that is responsible for creating an object of a class. So I'm going to run this. And you see, you will get this kind of structure over here, okay? Many times it will be minimized, sometimes it will be popped up on the screen, okay? So in my case, it is being minimized over here. So I'm gonna click and you see, this is how it looks, right? This is this one. You see a very teeny tiny something that has appeared on the screen. Okay, so this has appeared on the screen and I'm trying to move it. It's not giving me a space because it is so small. Okay, so this thing that has appeared on the screen is the one that, okay, let's see. So you see this one, this is the one that, this is the one. Okay, see, it says hello tkinter here, right? And if I'll minimize, this is the one that we have created. Okay, so let's go back to my code. And what I'm going to do is, see, this is very teeny tiny. So I want to adjust the dimensions of it. okay, so that it look good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna here and I'm gonna say I'm gonna define the geometry. So I'm gonna say self dot main underscore window dot geometry. Okay, and inside the double or single quotes. So first one is the width, the second one is the length. Okay, so I'm gonna say the width is 200 times the length is 200. Okay, you don't have to just define it a perfect square. It could be a rectangle or anything else. Okay, so I'm gonna run this now. And now see it looks like this. Okay, so this is how it looks like, right? Okay, so I'm gonna close it again. So this is how it looks like, right? I have displayed a label. Okay, now there are many ways you can create a label. Okay, so if I want to, let's say, create another label. Okay, let's create another label. So I'm gonna take this. Okay, for some reason my mouse is not moving smoothly. Okay, so I'll create one more label, and this time I'll do another. I'll just name it another variable. Okay, so label one, label two dot pack. Okay, and hello Kinter, welcome. Okay, I'll just write welcome on the other label. Okay, now let's run this. Okay, you see, hello Tkinter, welcome. Now the thing is, uh, it is being placed one below the other. Okay, but I don't want this. I want to place it as per, left, right, or up, down, something like that. There are two, three ways. Okay, the way I follow is I'll make use of a grid. Okay, so the grid is like it is like a table which is divided into rows and columns. Okay, so for example, instead of pack, now you have to be mindful of one thing, that pack and label does not go together. Either it is not pack and label, but pack and grid. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So self dot grid. Okay, and I would say that I want to place this label in the first row and first column. So I'm gonna say column equals to 1 and row equals to 1. Okay. And the second one, second label that I want to display, I'll say self.grid. Okay. And I'm going to say column equals to 2, comma, row equals to 1. Okay. So what will happen here? A table kind of structure will be formed. Okay. Something like this. So let's say this is my main window. This is my main window. Now this will be divided into a table kind of structure like this. So this one is the first row. This one is the second row. Let's say, okay, I'm not very good at drawing. So let's take this. And let's see, this is the first row and this is the second row, right? And this is the third row. So, and the fourth row is the last one, right? And again, this will be the column, the first column. So internally, this kind of structure is being formed, okay? Though you're not able to see it, but this kind of structure is formed, and then you place the component where you want. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So what did I said, depending upon how many rows and how many columns you're assigned, it is going to divide the screen into those many rows and those many columns. So if I say row 1 column 1, it will divide it like this. Okay, what I said is that the first one will be here. Okay, that is first row, first column. This one that you see here, okay, this one will be row 1, column 1. Some people also call it as row 0, column 0. Okay. And the second one that you see, okay, would be row 2, column 2. Okay, this one. This one will be row 1, column 2, right? And it will work like that. So for example, if I want to place it in over here, this will be row 2, column 1, right? Or if I want to place it here, this will be row 2, column 3, okay? And so on. So this is how the placement is being done, okay? So you'll have to map this in your mind. So the way there are two, three things, okay? Either you draw a wireframing diagram, a wireframe, that means you just draw it on a paper, or there are certain professional tools that are available to make such kind of diagram. By saying wireframe diagram, I mean you just create a layout of your page. So this is how it should look like. For example, for me, I would create something like this. So let's say, um, the application that I'm creating, let's say this is my main window. So I'm gonna get an application like this. So I'm gonna say hello, take enter, and welcome, right? So it is now divided into this hello tick enter will be the first row and first column, and this will welcome is the first row and the second column. So this kind of diagram that you made, I mean the sketch of your user interface, we call it as wireframe. Okay. So you either, for small application, we generally map it into our brain. If you are not able to do that, and most of the time, many people do it on the canvas. Okay, so you take a paper or a pen and just draw it on a sheet of a paper, or maybe something like that, how I have shown you just now. Okay, so I am trying to accomplish something like this. I'm trying to make something like this. So what I would do is, okay, so herein what I did is I said my first label should be in the column 1 and row 1, and the second label should be in the row 1, column 2. Okay, and as I said, the grid and pack does not go together. So I'm going to delete pack. Okay, and then I'm going to run this. Okay, and it's taking too long to run, and I wonder why. Okay, let's see. Okay, yeah, because I have not created an object of the class. So I have to create an object of the class to call it, right? So I'm going to create an object called as my GUI, and I'm going to create an object of the class. And now let's run this. GUI object has no attribute grid. Okay. Oh, self dot label one dot grid. And here in self dot label two dot grid. Okay. And let's run this now. Okay, and what does it say now? Looks like it is not creating it, okay? Because I accidentally deleted the main loop, okay? So I'm gonna say take into dot main loop, okay? So if you do not put this, your GUI is not going to be displayed on the screen, okay? And now see, okay, I think I hit it 3 times, so I'm just gonna run it. Okay, and it is minimized here. And you see, hello, take enter, welcome, right? Because I wrote it as row 1, column 1, row 2, column 2. So it is being displayed like this. Okay. So now, again, you can put a space. So here, and if you'll see, hello is too close to the left edge of the screen and the top edge of the screen, and same goes with welcome. Okay, so I want to keep a space in between. So to keep a space in between the widgets, okay, here label is one widget, another label is another widget. So I'm to keep a space between it, we use pad X. Okay, and let's say I'm going to use pad X as 10, then I'm going to use pad Y, and I'm going to say equals to 10. Similarly here, I'm going to say pad X equals to 10 and pad Y equals to 10. So it will automatically adjust the space between the widgets, okay? So I'm going to run this. And if you'll see, now hello is not close to the edge. It has moved uh, below the edge by 10 units and from the left by 10 units. Okay, so this distance that you see, this one, okay, is 10 units, and from top it is 10 units. Similarly, the distance between hello Kinter and welcome has been moved to 10 units. Okay, it's not compulsory, that it's not mandatory that you should give the same value. Okay, you should give different values, as you can give different values as well for pad X and pad Y. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, that's how we create a label. Okay, now let's try to create a simple application. Okay, that involves a text field. So let's see how to do that. Okay. So to get a text field, what we do is we use an entry field. Okay, so if you'll see in the list of widgets here, there is one widget called as entry. What is it used for? An area in which the user may type a single line of input from the keyboard. Okay, so we can use a single line of input from the keyboard. Button that can cause an action to occur when it is clicked. So we're gonna make use of entry and the button, and we're gonna see a simple application. Okay, so let's see here. So now I'm gonna get rid of these things. Okay, let's see if okay, let's see one more thing. Okay, you see what has happened just now. So the font color can be changed like this. Okay, the font color can be changed like this. So these everything over here has many properties. Okay, so for example, text is used to display text of the label. FG is used to display the color of the font. Font is used to you can even style the font with the color, the style, the weight of the font, etc. Okay, so I would suggest you search through the attributes that goes into the tkinter. Okay, inside every widget. Okay, so what I would do is, for example, I would search it on Google. Okay, so that's too long. There is a documentation of tkinter available as well. Okay, so tkinter label attributes. Okay, and you can use this website. This website has provided a very good tutorials on tkinter. I generally go with Python basics, or you have a website of tkinter as well. Okay, let's look at over here. So the syntaxes is being given. See, BG, the normal background color displayed behind the label and indicator. Okay, cursor, FG, we just use FG. So every attribute is being separated with comma, right? You can use height, you can put an image over there. Pad X and pad Y we just used, right? Text we have used, we are gonna see text variable. So all the instructions and all and the description of that is being provided here. Okay, so try and play around with it. Okay, we're going to see a very basic. We are going to focus on implementation of graphical user interface in Python. I would encourage you to play around with it and use these variables to see how it works, okay? How these attributes work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an application to convert miles into a kilometer. Okay, so an application, something like this. So for example, here run, okay, you would have used it many times, but let's see. So I'm gonna do this and here run kilometer to miles, right? See, an application like this, so wherein it has a 1 over written over here and the mile is 0.62137, etc. And if I'll put 2, it is 1.24, okay? An application, something like this, okay? We're not going to go with the changes and it should immediately project a change in the text field, but something similar to this, okay? So let's create it here run. Again, I created a main window using tkinter.tk. I set the geometry of the main window as 200 by 200. I'm gonna use another geometry because I want to make it a bigger one. Okay, now first of all, we're gonna create a label. Okay, so first we're gonna create a label to ask the user to enter the distance in kilometer. Okay, so I'm gonna say self dot label one equals to and click enter dot label. Where do you want to keep it again? We want to place it inside the main window, right? Inside the main window, comma. What do you want to display on the label? I want to ask the user to enter the distance in kilometer. Okay, so enter the distance in kilometer, right? Okay, so I created a label. Now what I want to do is I'm going to place it. So I'm going to make use of grid. I'm going to say self dot grid. Okay, and I'm going to say column equals to 1, row equals to 1. I'm going to use pad x equals to 10. I'm going to use pad y equals to 10. And I'm going to say sticky equals to tkinter dot east. Okay, so that means I'm going to place it in the east part of my main window. Okay, so you have east, you have west, you have east west, okay, north, south, etc. So the attributes that, excuse me, the attribute that we use for it is sticky. Okay, so I created a label. Now what I want to do is I want to create a space for the user to enter that value, right? Something like this. So herein I'm putting a value 2, right? This is called as entry. We call it as entry in Python, especially when we are using a tkinter. So I'm gonna say self. I'm gonna name that variable as input, okay? I'm gonna say tkinter dot entry. Tkinter dot entry. And where do you want to place it again? I want to place it in the main window. Okay. And I'm gonna say, so entry boxes does not have a text, right? I'm not gonna put a text over there. You can, however, place you can, however, place a placeholder over there, okay? So we created an entry to get an input from the user, okay? Now I'm gonna say the width of this entry field or text field is 10. Okay, now I want to place it next to the label. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say self.input.grid. Okay, self. Okay, let me type it. Self. Okay, and something. Okay, so here I'm going to say self.input.grid. Okay, and inside that, I'm going to say column equals to 2, row equals to 1, right? And then I'm going to say pad x equals to 10, pad y equals to 10, and sticky equals to tkinter dot east. Okay, so that they are placed next to each other. Okay, let's run this and check. So I'm gonna run this. Okay, and it looks like this. Right, it looks like this. So enter the distance in kilometer, and then the entry box is denoted like this. Right, now you can increase the font as well. Okay, and as I said, you can always search the things on the internet. Okay, because we generally memorize the common properties and common widgets to something to fit to your personal requirements. You can anyway search on Google. Okay, so for example, docs.python.org is the one wherein you can search it, or let's see here. Okay, what I'm gonna see is increasing font peak enter, let's say label. Okay, I know how to do it, but I'm just showing you how you can search it on the net as well. Okay, so how do I change the text size in a label? So the one that you can see here, okay, this one, you can use this one. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go back to my program, and here and to increase the size of the label, what I would do is the one that wherein I have created a label, I created a label here, right? I'm gonna do font is equals to the name of the font, the type of the font, and the size of the font. Okay, and it require one more bracket. So because I took it on a different line, does this work? Okay, let's put it comma. Okay, so I want it, so this one, comma, and then I put the font here. Okay, now I think 40 will be too big, so I'm gonna take it as maybe 15. Let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna run this, and let's see, it is looking good, right? Let me change the width to, let's say, 20, and let's see what happens. I'm gonna run this code and see the width of the entry field has increased. Okay, but I'm seeing that my entry field is going out of the screen, so I need to change the width. Okay, so I'm going to change the width to, let's say, from 500 to 400 to 500, and let's run this now, and now it looks good, right? Enter the distance in kilometer, and we have an entry field over here. Okay, you can also change the height of it. I'll just keep it like this now. So I have created a label and an entry field. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button so that when the user click on the button, the answer will be displayed. Okay, so the way you create a button is I'm going to go here again, and I'm going to name a variable first to create a button. So I'm going to name it as self dot, let's say, btn equals to, again, tkinter dot button. Okay, tkinter dot button, and where do I want to place it? I want to place it in the main window, right? Okay, and what do I want to display on the button? I want to display on the button calculate. Okay, calculate. Okay, and I'm going to use the same font size. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna place it over here. Font equals to, okay, because I want everything to be on the same screen, I'll put this here. Okay, and the font is this one, bold and 15. You can put it italic as well. Okay, so I created a button. Now place the button at the proper place. So I'm gonna say self dot btn dot grid. Okay, and I want to now place it below. Okay, so in that case, I'm gonna say it as column equals to, let's say, 2, row equals to 2. Okay, parex equals to 10, bad5 equals to 10, and I'm gonna say sticky equals to tkinter, and now I'm gonna say west, okay, because I want to just place it on the west side. Okay, let's see whether, and it is always good that you test your code as you go along to avoid uh, like debugging the code for a long time. Okay, so I'm gonna run this and it looks like this. So I have entered the distance in kilometer. I have a calculate button. Okay, so this is how my GUI look like. You can change the background color. You can change the font color. And I've shown you how to change that, okay, as per your choice. So, and my, okay, let's see the height as well here. HEIGHT equals 2. I'm going to take it as 10 and let's see what happens if I do it like that. So I changed the height of my text field to 10 and run the code. Okay, it's not taking the height. HEIGHT. Okay, we'll come to this later. Okay, let's. Okay, or otherwise, if it is showing that error, we can also search it, right? So we're gonna say increasing height of entry in tkinter. Okay, tkinter has no height property to set the height of an entry widget. To set the height, you can use the font name, font size property. Okay, so it is saying that the entry one, well, others have the property as height, but the entry box does not have. By increasing the size of the height, you can eventually increase the size of the height by decreasing the. Okay, so you can, the way you can do it is you can use font. Okay, for entry. Others, you can increase the height and width for entry, especially if I will make use of this font, it will let me increase it. Okay, let's see. Okay, and it has vanished. Let me do it here. Yep. Okay. Now I think the width also has increased. Okay, so I'm gonna increase the geometry again. So I'm gonna say geometry 600. Okay, as the width. Now let's see. Okay, now it looks good, right? It looks better. So entry, you cannot directly increase the height with a height property or an attribute, but you can make use of font attribute to increase the height, okay? And whatever is the size of the font, it will adjust the height accordingly, okay? Now, so we have to write a program that what happens when you click on the calculate button. Okay, now see, I'm clicking on the button, but nothing is happening. But I want to write a program that this, whatever the user will enter over here, for example, 2, and when I click on calculate, it must be converted into equivalent miles. Okay, so that is what we're going to work now. So for that, first you'll have to write a function. Okay, and let's say I'm going to write a function. I'm going to say def convert. Okay, so I wrote a function here which says def convert. Now first what I want first is whatever the user has put inside the input field, in the entry field, I want to retrieve that value. What that mean is, for example, when I run this code, okay, because I wrote a function, it is giving me an error here. So let's see this now. So here, whatever I have put inside this entry, I want to retrieve this value. Okay, that is 23, because then I want to calculate that 23 has been converted into certain miles, right? So I want to retrieve this value. The way you do it is you say whatever is the variable wherein you are storing that entry field dot get. Okay, let's see how. Okay, so we're going to say here def, after you write def convert, and as I have said that when you create a class, now they see I'm creating it inside this class, and this def has to be outside this initializer function. Okay, this def is a different function. So def convert self, okay, and I'm going to create a variable here, okay, that will take the input, right? So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a variable, let's say kilometer equals to. So what is the name of my entry field? The name of my entry field is input, right? So I'm going to say self dot input dot get. What that mean is whatever the user will enter into the entry field, it can be retrieved using this. Okay, you can retrieve this using this get keyword. Okay, so I got this one. Okay, if you want to check, I can show you how you can do that. Okay, so I'll just write print kilometer. Okay, okay. Now let's see. Now you have to call this function as well. Okay, you would like to call this function as well. So where do you call a function? I want to call a function when the user click on the button, right? Where have I created a button? I have created a button at line number 13 over here. To call this function, what you're going to do here is, comma, you're going to say command. Command equals to and name this function. Okay, so my function name equals to, I'm going to say self dot convert, because we are writing it in initializer, right? So this function name is convert. I wrote it as self dot convert. Okay, notice that I have not put a opening and closing parenthesis to call this function. I just wrote the function name, right? Let's see. Let me run this and okay. So if you'll see it, something will be displayed here at the output. Okay, so I'm going to put something over here, let's say 34, and I'll say calculate. And now see that value is being printed over here. Okay, it has received in this variable kilometer and I have printed it. So it is printing it over here. Okay. Okay, let's do another value. Let's say 78, calculate, and it is printing 78 over here. Right. So that's how it works. Okay, so we can retrieve a value that is put inside an entry field using that entry field name dot get. Okay. Now one thing is to be noted here is whatever you put into an entry field is a string. Python consider it as a string. Okay. Now if you want to convert it into miles, you have to do some mathematical calculations, right? And those mathematical calculations cannot be done on the string. So what do you need? You need to convert that string into a float or an integer value, right? So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to get rid of this because I don't want to print it. Okay, I just wrote it to show you. So I'm going to create one variable, let's say km, and I'm going to say equals to float kilometer. Okay, we have learned this before as well, right? You can convert any variable into a float or an integer, but just reusing this function float. So it will say that take this value kilometer and convert it into float, right? Now I want to convert it into miles. So I'll say miles equals to, write the formula. The formula is kilometer times 0.6214. 6214. Okay, so now I converted it into miles. Right. Okay, now we have to display it. Okay. There are three ways. Either you can display it on the same screen or I'm going to pop up a different screen. Okay. And to pop up the different screen, you write it as tkinter dot message box. Okay. Dot show info. So you have various, show error, show info, show warning, etc. So I'm going to use show info from this, and I'm going to say the first argument that goes inside it is the title of that screen. Okay, title of that pop-up box. And then I'm going to use an F string, and I'm going to say whatever kilometer the user has entered, kilometer, okay, um, is equal to, and I'm gonna say so many miles, right? Now this is similar to how we print variables and its value, right? I'm gonna say miles. So the way it's gonna do is result is with the name of that pop-up screen, okay, the title of that pop-up screen, and then it is going to say take this value kilometer, okay, is equals to, and I'm gonna take this value miles. Okay, now let's see first. Okay, let's run this and check. Okay, and so I'm gonna say distance in kilometer to calculate and see it is popping it over here. Okay, 2 is equals to 1.2428 miles, right? 2 kilometer. Okay, I did not printed it properly, so I would like to print it. So herein I'm gonna say kilometer, right? It is just printing the value. Okay, I'm gonna close this window. Herein I'm gonna say kilometer. Okay, is equals to so and so miles, right? Now run this. And I'm gonna say 2 kilometer, or let's say 4 kilometer, calculate. And it is saying 4 kilometers is equals to 2.4856 miles. Okay, let's change the value and see, maybe 10. Okay, it is printing. Now, you see how it is printing 6.2139999, etc. of miles, right? I want to restrict this to 2 decimal places, okay? So we can make use of format in that case, right? So let's see how to use that, okay? So to restrict it to 2 decimal places, we have made use of format in before as well. We have seen the use of format. So I'm gonna say format here. Okay, what do I want to format? I want to format miles, okay, with how many decimal points? I want to format miles with 0.2f decimal points, right? So format miles and with 2f decimal points. So the whole code looks like this. Let me put it on the a line below so that you can see it. So result f kilometer is equals to format, and I put miles and I restricted it to decimal places, right? Okay, let's check. So I'm gonna run this code. I'm gonna put 5, calculate, and 5 kilometer is equals to 3.11 miles. Now why it is putting a space over here? Because I put this and I just put it enter, right, on the new line. So it is printing as per what I have written in the F string. Okay, if you don't want that, maybe again you'll have to concatenate and all. Okay, so either you write it on one line or just complete the F string here, start another F string here. Okay, and let's see. Okay, go here. Okay, I think this is the one. This does not solve it. Let me check one more time. Yeah, so you can do it like that, okay? 2 F strings inside that. Now if you'll see result, which was the first argument in show info, is the title of that screen. Okay, again, you can change the font and colors and all those things. I would suggest you play around with it, okay? Now, for some of you, you will notice that it will give an error for a message box, okay, saying that the model does not exist or something like that. So if you get an error like that, what you're going to do is herein, you're going to say from tkinter import message box. Okay, from tkinter, import message box, and that will solve this problem. Okay, so I hope how to create an application in tkinter is understood to you and you enjoy creating that application. Okay, now there is one more thing that I wanted to show is so herein, if you do not want to pop up in a different screen, so for example, when I click on calculate, I am popping it in a different screen and I don't want that. Okay, what I want to do is I want to put it in the same screen. Okay, in the same screen. And I want to create one more button saying quit. The saying quit, what happens is when I'll click on that button, the application will quit. Okay, and we are going to see that in next video. Till then, happy coding.